This is a special edition of 2020, the deadliest mass murder since 2019.
8 people killed, 7 women, 6 were of Asian descent. All fellow Americans, each one of them we mourn.
Fear, brutal assaults, and hate, all in the shadow of a pandemic.
The shootings took place as violent hate crimes and discrimination against Asian Americans has risen dramatically over the last year and more.
Why is this happening? And what's being done to stop it?
What happens right now and over the course of the coming months will send a message for generations to come as to whether we matter.
Right now, our reporters are live across the country with their experiences. Here now, David Muir, Eva Pilgrim, and Juju Chang.
Good evening and welcome to a special edition of 2020, Murder in Atlanta. We come on the air tonight with a nation angry, on edge, and grieving over the wave of attacks against Asian Americans here in the U.S. Millions were stunned by a gunman's shooting rampage here in Atlanta, killing 8 people, 6 of Asian descent. Tonight we are learning more about those 8 victims.
And Juju, we were all watching as President Biden and Vice President Harris came before the cameras in Atlanta late today after meeting with Asian American leaders, community leaders, in the wake of the shootings. The president calling the meetings heart-wrenching. The president addressing the skyrocketing spike in attacks against Asians in the U.S., calling it a year of living in fear. And Vice President Harris, who is black and Asian American, addressing the loss, the pain, and the work that's now needed.
6 out of the 8 people killed on Tuesday night were of Asian descent. 7 were women. The shootings took place in businesses owned by Asian Americans. The shootings took place as violent hate crimes and discrimination against Asian Americans has risen dramatically over the last year and more.
But whatever the motivation, we know this. Too many Asian Americans have been walking up and down the streets and worrying, waking up each morning the past year feeling their safety and the safety of their loved ones are at stake.
This week's shooting rampage in Atlanta is the deadliest mass shooting in the U.S. in nearly 2 years. We have covered so many of these tragedies, each making a powerful impact on American lives. School children in Parkland and Newtown, concert goers in Las Vegas.
And Eva, in Atlanta this week, of course, the horrific shootings force a nation to address questions of racism, sexism, and the destructive power of words along the way. And so we begin tonight back at the scene in Atlanta. And Juju.
David, this nightmare chain of events began unfolding in the Atlanta area on Tuesday night. The gunman opening fire at one business, driving 30 miles to target victims at 2 other businesses, including here at Gold Spa behind me. Authorities say he had been to these establishments before. And for police, it was a race against time to catch the shooter before he could kill again.
On a damp and dreary afternoon, terror and horror seizes the Atlanta area as a lone assailant launches an hours-long shooting rampage across multiple Asian-owned spas.
Some guy came in and took the gun, so everybody heard the gunshot.
We do not have a witness that actually is alive right now that can tell us who shot him.
21-year-old Robert Aaron Long arrives at Young's Asian Massage Parlor in Ackworth, Georgia, 45 minutes north of the city. The man allegedly sits in his car for almost an hour. Then around 4:50, he enters Young's and opens fire. Police arriving within minutes, finding a massacre.
Sounds like a...
4 are dead. Xiaojia Tan went by Emily. She was the owner of Young's and a licensed massage therapist. She would have turned 50 yesterday. Delana Ashley Yan was a 33-year-old mother of 2. She leaves behind a 13-year-old son and a baby born just 8 months ago. She'd been getting a couples massage with her husband Mario, who was in a separate room and was able to escape.
No se pone a pensar la familia que sufre, pues, y lo que deja todavía los niños que sufren por su mamá, su papá o que fallecen. No, eso no está bien. Justicia es lo que pido.
Paul Andre Michaels, 54, of Atlanta. Daoya Feng, 44, whose address wasn't immediately known. A fifth person is in stable condition, 30-year-old Elcius Hernandez Ortiz of Ackworth. He was leaving the store next door to the spa and was hit.
We never know when we're at the wrong place at the wrong time, and I feel like that's what happened with him.
Police gathering evidence from nearby surveillance footage, posting the images online in hopes the public can identify the shooter. Long's father calls 911.
I was there speaking with the family. They were very helpful in this apprehension.
Almost an hour after the first shooting, 30 miles away, police respond to a call about a robbery at the Gold Spa. It's in an area with a strip club and other spas.
We just heard numerous gunshots coming from across the street.
Inside Gold Spa, officers find 3 women shot. One of them is Hyunjung Grant.
She was quite literally the only thing that kept us running.
As officers are tending to the dying victims, they're alerted to another shooting directly across the street at the 24-hour aromatherapy spa.
Some ladies got hurt, I think, and everybody's scared, so they're hiding behind. But the ladies passed out.
Inside, they find a Korean woman dead from a gunshot wound. The victims from the second and third shootings are Soonjung Park, age 74, Soonja Kim, age 69, and Young Ah-yu, age 63. There's so much we still don't know about many of these victims, their identities obscured, in part because of the complicated and highly racialized, even dangerous reality for some Asian women in America.
So we need to make sure if we have any Asian spas, we need to be checking on them.
Long's parents have also told authorities their son has a tracker app on his cell phone, and it's activated. Authorities locate Long traveling south on Interstate 75, disable his vehicle, arrest him.
He apparently has an issue, what he considers a sex addiction, and sees these locations as something that allows him to go to these places, and it's a temptation for him that he wanted to eliminate.
It's the biggest mass shooting in this country since 2019, coming in the midst of an enormous spike in crimes against Asians and Pacific Islanders. This week alone, an 83-year-old Asian man assaulted, parts of his neck fractured, a 59-year-old Asian man beaten, nearly blinded in one eye, and a 76-year-old Asian woman punched in the eye, left bleeding.
For over a year, Asian Americans have been fighting an additional virus of hate and bigotry. Our community is bleeding. We are in pain, and for the last year, we've been screaming out for help.
The fear in the Asian community, especially in Atlanta, now at crisis levels.
How's it going?
Irene Pan owns a spa just a few minutes away from where the shooting took place.
When the sheriff's office said, oh, it's not race, it's just sex addiction.
I really don't think so. My worker is kind of concerned to come to work right now. Some people is crazy. I mean, they come without to say anything or argument, just shoot you.
She's now considering buying a gun for protection.
And tonight, Randy Park, who lost his mother, telling us he's having a hard time putting his gratitude now into words. The GoFundMe page he set up, hoping to make rent for a month and maybe pay for funeral expenses, has raised nearly $2 million in 24 hours. Donations coming in from around the world, reflecting all the emotion tonight. We've been talking with the grieving families of some of the victims from the attacks, including Jamie Webb, alongside her father, left to reflect on the lives and the potential.
Yesterday was her 50th birthday. That must have been a hard day for you.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of your favorite memories of your mom, what are they?
Eating sushi before she goes back to work.
What do you think she sacrificed along the way for your benefit?
Her whole life. Any dream or aspiration she could have had. She loved clubbing, partying, karaoke, singing. She loved music.
What did she tell you?
On every single room.
What went through your mind about all the things you have to shoulder now?
I'm a train wreck at night when I'm alone.
What do you miss the most?
Her.
All of her?
Yeah.
How do you want your mom to be remembered?
That she's a great mother. She wants us to have a good life. That's why she worked so hard.
Your mom would be very proud of you.
Yes.
And I know she was.
And you can see the outpouring here, candles and flowers blossoming on the sidewalk in front of Gold Spa behind me, and notes in Korean. And alongside the Stop the Hate hashtags, handwritten notes that say, we stand with our neighbors against racism. David?
We certainly do, Juju. Thank you. And as we try to focus on these families, we are also learning more tonight about the alleged gunman, 21-year-old Robert Aaron Long. There remain questions about his motive, and authorities there in Georgia say they have not ruled out whether this is a hate crime.
Authorities say he bought the gun he used the day of the shooting on that day, and they believe he was on the way to kill again when he was stopped. Here's ABC's Steve Osinsami.
This is what heartbreak looks like across America. The strangers who are joining the families of victims to cry. This is also what it looks like to stand against hate. People of all colors speaking up and marching out for Asian Americans who feel under attack. In all, 8 people were gunned down in this killing spree. And the number one question for the accused murderer, why?
The suspect did take responsibility for the shootings.
Investigators say that 21-year-old Robert Aaron Long told them he struggled with a sex addiction, and that somehow in his mind he thought he'd fix himself by targeting the 24-hour spas where he was a regular. The gun police say he used, they say he bought it here on the day of the shooting. And if they hadn't stopped him, they think he would have made it to Florida.
It is very likely that there would have been more victims.
Authorities in Atlanta's suburbs and the city have now charged him with 8 counts of murder. Rodney Bryant is the interim police chief in Atlanta, where the killing spread between 2 spas.
I think that people thought that it was all wrapped up once we made the arrest. But now this is where the real work begins.
What do you think about the chances of this becoming a hate crimes case?
It's just too early for me to make that determination because there's so many questions that are left unanswered. You have to look at the victims that we had in the city of Atlanta. All of our victims were female. All of our victims were Asian. There's so much more that needs to be uncovered.
The tone is slightly different in the suburbs, where the first 4 victims died and where the accused killer is in custody.
This is still early, but he does claim that it was not racially motivated.
The sheriff's office in the suburbs is having to defend itself after their spokesperson came across to some as racially insensitive, saying this about the accused gunman.
He was pretty much fed up and kind of at the end of his rope, and yesterday was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did.
After that, it was a bad day for the sheriff, who removed this police captain from briefings on the case. It didn't help when people discovered this now deleted Facebook post by the same captain, telling his friends to buy T-shirts that say COVID-19 imported virus from China. It's the same type of message against Asians that people in the streets are trying to fight. Here in Atlanta, authorities say they get it, and there's lots of work to do.
It frightens Asian Americans, not just here but across the country. I mean, people are scared.
We recognize the concern and the pain that they're going through. We're here to make sure that this doesn't fall through the crack, that we not miss one stone as it relates to investigating this case.
Moments from now, Senator Tammy Duckworth and her concerns about crimes against Asians going unreported.
The Chinese virus. Kung flu.
The Chinese virus.
It's got all different names. Wuhan.
How his racist words are linked to violence against the Asian community. Then, the on-court experience that made basketball star Jeremy Lin speak out. He joins us with his story.
Welcome back to this special edition of 2020. There were powerful and raw moments on Capitol Hill late this week. Testimony about the rise in hate crimes and discrimination against Asian Americans. Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth adding her voice to so many others, demanding action when it comes to crimes against Asian Americans, most often going underreported in this country, and the destructive power of words used over the past year during this pandemic. I asked Senator Duckworth about all of this just a short time ago. Senator Duckworth, thank you for being here tonight. I know you testified on Capitol Hill late this week, the first hearing on Asian American hate in this country in more than 3 decades. You were very honest about what you've seen, and it's great to have you with us here tonight. I did want to get your reaction, first of all, to President Biden in Atlanta tonight. He said words have consequences, that this should be called coronavirus, full stop. Vice President Harris said in the last year that leaders with the biggest pulpit in the world were spreading hate. Do you agree with that? Do you see a direct connection, words that were used during the pandemic, with this rise in hate against Asian Americans?
Yes, I do see a direct link between the, these hateful terms that President Trump has used and many of his supporters have used to call the coronavirus, and really, it's just this further effort to scapegoat and shift the blame away from his own failures onto the Asian American community. But unfortunately, it has grown into an all-out attack on Asian Americans across this country, and that's just simply not acceptable.
You have called for formal investigations into crimes against Asian Americans in this country that you say go underreported and have for many years. You heard what the FBI director said, Christopher Wray, in the last 24 hours, that what we saw in Atlanta this week, he said that it does not appear the motive to be racially motivated. Do you agree with him on that point? Is this bigger than that?
I think it's too soon to know exactly what the motivation was in Atlanta. I will tell you, though, that the issue is much bigger than the shootings in Atlanta. We have seen that race crimes, hate crimes against Asian Americans have risen by over 150% in the last year alone in our major cities.
I wonder if you took note that we heard from both President Biden and Vice President Harris that whatever the motivation, they seem to put that right to the side today in addressing the American people, that this is bigger than that we must acknowledge that Asian Americans over the last year in particular, the president said, wake up in fear of verbal attacks. It talked about the attacks on Asian Americans, both verbally and that some have been physically attacked, have been killed, that this is real, and that regardless of what we've seen just this week in Atlanta, and however this is labeled by the local authorities ultimately, that we must have a bigger picture here about what's going on.
Very much so. I think both the president and the vice president were right on point there to say that this is a bigger trend in the nation and that we have to stop it. And as leaders, we must make it clear that race crimes and hate crimes against AAPIs are not acceptable. They're not acceptable against anyone, but that there is a real problem here where an entire community of Americans have been targeted and scapegoated. And I think that's a key word there that the president used, scapegoating, because that's exactly what has happened to Asian Americans throughout our nation's history.
I'm curious, Senator, we heard from that brave son here. He and his brother left without their mother, Hyun Jung Grant. His name is Randy. He penned a letter about his mom saying she is a single mother who dedicated her whole life to providing for my brother and I. She was one of my best friends, he said, and the strongest influence on who we are today. I'm curious, how do people watching who feel for that son, who feel for all of these families here, and who want the hate to stop, and are wondering at home tonight, what can I do as a lone American? What would you say to them?
What I would say to them is stand up and speak out when you see instances of racism happening. You have to call out bad behavior instead of turning the other way. We've had Asian Americans attacked in public places and no one comes to their aid. No one comes to their rescue. It happens on a daily basis. Somebody makes racist comments in a grocery store. My own mother, when she goes grocery shopping, sometimes has to endure racist comments, from other shoppers. And the people around them may hear but say nothing. So, every individual can make a difference. You can teach your children that these are racist terms and this is not acceptable. You can model the best behavior and call it out when you see it happening, because it's happening all over the country.
Hopefully we've started that conversation here tonight. Senator Duckworth, thanks so much for taking the time for us.
Thanks for having me on.
Senator Duckworth with us tonight, making it very clear everyone has a role to play, and she really does believe that Americans are not powerless in this moment.
And that we can all play a role to call it out and stand with our neighbors. Such an important message, David. And President Biden delivering that powerful message in Atlanta earlier tonight, that words have consequences, reiterating this is the coronavirus, full stop. President Biden saying the use of hate words and hateful acts must come to an end. Here's ABC's Zareen Shaw.
condemnation of the recent rash of anti-Asian violence from President Biden and Vice President Harris, the country's highest-ranking Asian American official.
A harm against any one of us is a harm against all of us.
Saying hateful words and deeds against fellow Americans must stop.
We cannot be complicit. We have to speak out. We have to act.
A call for action during the nationwide rise in COVID-fueled attacks on Asian Americans. Videos like this sparking outrage. The senseless death of 84-year-old Thai immigrant Vichar Ratanapauti knocked to the ground while on his morning walk, spurring many to stand up against anti-Asian hate.
Seeing these elderly Asians just being attacked viciously, I really was paralyzed.
Actress Olivia Munn says her friend's mom was attacked, captured by surveillance cameras.
We've been hearing about these attacks for a long time, and especially during the last year when the pandemic was weaponized against Asian Americans.
While not all attacks have been physical, the weaponry of xenophobic words can cut just as deep.
Asian piece of
Oh my God.
Then we have Torrance Karen.
Go back to whatever Asian country you belong in.
It is something in the psyche of this country where somehow it's okay to physically or verbally abuse Asian Americans. We're being scapegoated.
Clinical psychologist Dr. Doris Chang has studied anti-Asian discrimination. We've seen an increase in physical attacks. What's the impact of the emotional attacks, the words?
Words are extremely powerful. Our former president used a lot of words to describe the coronavirus.
The China flu.
The China virus.
The plague from China, we have to be accurate. Kung flu.
Unapologetically, he helped to stoke the fires of anti-Asian violence.
You know, the reality is it reinforces a particular association between the virus, something deadly, with a group of people.
And language of hate, it seems, begets the violence. Anti-Asian violence is up about 150% in major U.S. cities. And according to an NYU survey, 34% of Asian Americans say they've been victims of verbal abuse since the start of the pandemic. 24% cite workplace discrimination, and 16% say they were spit at.
4 out of every 10 Asian Americans has had one of these experiences directly in the past year. It shows how underreported these acts of violence and discrimination are.
But a growing movement of young people refusing to stay silent.
We're sick and tired of being invisible and ignored in our country. The pain of the Asian community has been muted for decades.
The destructive power of words. And we'll be right back in a moment with former presidential candidate Andrew Yang and his wife Evelyn Yang and her own bravery with what she has faced. The special edition of 2020 continues here in a moment.
And welcome back to our 2020 special, Murder in Atlanta. Former presidential candidate and current New York mayoral candidate Andrew Yang is also addressing the mass shooting in Atlanta and the rise in Asian American attacks across the country. His wife Evelyn today tweeting about the intersection of race, misogyny, and rape culture and the backlash she faced when revealing her own sexual assault. Evelyn and Andrew Yang joining us now. And Evelyn, thank you both for being here, but I want to start with you, if I may. You recently tweeted that the fetishizing of Asian women is real, and you've spoken out as a survivor yourself. Why is this such an important topic for you?
Well, thank you, Gigi. Thanks for having us today. You know, the shooter targeted Asian American women. And of course, hits very close to home. You know, when I came forward about being sexually assaulted by my doctor last year, I was not expecting the racial element that I experienced, but I wasn't surprised. You know, I got some comments that were racially charged, like you wanted his egg roll, and things, other comments that were honestly much worse than that I can't even speak. And I think that the problem here is this stereotyping of Asian women that is harmful because it implies fault on the part of the victim. So Asian women are either too submissive and too much of a pushover that we somehow let it happen, or that we're hypersexualized and we were asking for it. These are two just very toxic, obviously, elements to these stereotypes, but they're also barriers to Asian women coming forward about sexual assault when, culturally, it's also less likely that Asian American women come forward to begin with. And I think when you look at...
Right. I know you both have fought against the cultural tendency towards silence. Andrew, you have been such a staunch ally for your wife throughout her ordeal. How can men be allies in this fight?
Well, men have to speak up when we see something in terms of misogyny or mistreatment of women. And certainly if there's a woman in our life that is being subject to some form of abuse or harassment. And I have to say that men are around other men, and we can do more. We have to be able to look out for the women in our lives and really the people in our community more than is happening in many environments right now.
And yet, Evelyn, you also have spoken out about experiencing COVID racism firsthand. What did you mean by that?
So I think like many Asians in the last year, we've experienced belittling just on the street. My first brush with COVID-related racism was a comment by a woman who said something to me along the lines of, "Stay away from me, I don't want your diseases." And I think what was most disturbing about that encounter was that it was in broad daylight. She said it in front of her friend, like it was completely acceptable. When it's not. Right. And I think that this speaks to the normalization of what's happening within our community, which is the dehumanization of Asian Americans.
Right.
And even
Andrew, in the 10 seconds we have left, what can the Asian American community do to rally around this issue and stop the hate?
The first thing we have to do is let people know that this is happening, this is real, it's getting stronger, it's getting more dangerous. And even now, Juju, a lot of these incidents are not reported. We have to change that.
Thank you for being part of the change, Andrew and Evelyn Yang. Thanks for being with us. David?
Juju, thank you, and to the Yangs. And when we come back tonight, Asian Americans from every corner of this country, in their own words, on the hurt caused by stereotypes and why we can no longer look the other way. And former NBA star Jeremy Lin speaking out and sometimes worrying he's saying too much. But the moment is here, and he's not about to stop now. We'll be right back.
And welcome back to this special edition of 2020. Asian Americans represent people from more than 48 countries around the globe.
It's really important to remember that, Juju. And despite that, Eva has reported on how often they're lumped together into a single community here in the U.S.
One unifying factor, the history of racism nearly all Asian American groups have encountered, so often rooted in xenophobia and otherism, for generations treated as foreigners who are not full Americans. Almost as soon as Asian immigrants set foot in this country, ethnic scapegoating followed right behind. Chinese workers in the mid-1800s helping to build the railroads heard they were taking American jobs.
Asians were never regarded as Americans, meaning that they were never given citizens' rights at the beginning of the Republic.
In 1871, a violent mob in Los Angeles lynched at least 17 Chinese residents, a massacre fueled by white resentment toward the growing immigrant population. In 1882, the animosity led Congress to pass the first and only law restricting an ethnic group coming into the country, the Chinese Exclusion Act. It lasted until 1943.
You make them the other through legislation, such as the passage of the Chinese Exclusion Act. To be an other is not simply, oh, you're someone else. You know, you're just not an American. It's not like that. It's also about the process of being objectified, of being less than human.
Soon after, what many consider one of the most shameful moments in American history, Japanese Americans treated as the suspect enemy in their own nation, placed in internment camps during World War II.
2/3 of those Japanese Americans were U.S.-born Americans, and they were forcibly relocated and incarcerated without due process.
For decades, Hollywood has both reflected and reinforced portrayals of Asian Americans as perpetual foreigners, from Breakfast at Tiffany's to 16 Candles.
What's happening, hot stuff?
Turning racism into laughs.
When you see nothing but that clownish, that buffoonish image, that implacably alien image constantly being painted on our faces, then it's so much easier to not think of us as human.
But of all the racist stereotypes, some of the most insidious are those that hypersexualize Asian women, frequently portrayed as sex objects, like in Austin Powers.
Austin Powers is very sexy.
Or the submissive women in massage parlors, like in Rush Hour 2.
Oh my goodness.
Asian women as the focus of the Western male gaze is nothing new, playing out in real life with the U.S. military in Asia fueling sex industries that exploited Asian women. But it's this scene from Full Metal Jacket that has permeated American culture like few others.
Me love you long time.
Those words used repeatedly in movies like The 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Me love you long time.
And TV shows like South Park.
Me love you long time.
Those are the lines that people remember, and it haunts us.
Images have power. Stories have power.
Activists say the toxic mix of racism and misogyny in these portrayals influence the way Asian women are treated in society.
When you think of humans as objects and when you erase their humanity, then it is no surprise that our lives are seen as worthless.
In this year of racial reckoning, AAPI activists say the attacks must end, and that starts with stamping out the underlying conditions of otherism and racism that feed violence.
Racism and xenophobia are national problems. The only way to survive this pandemic, the only way to survive these violent attacks is to work together and recognize our common humanity.
And so many voices have been speaking out about the spike in Asian American attacks. One of the most vocal, former NBA star Jeremy Lin. Jeremy Lin joins us now. And Jeremy, I know you started speaking out because something happened to you on the basketball court. Tell us about that.
For me, I was just playing and was called coronavirus during game. But, I think that was just kind of a microcosm of everything that has been happening, the rhetoric from the previous administration. And again, a lot of these microaggressions or things that you guys have been talking about just now in the video, and it's starting to come out in different ways. And what I went through was just verbal. It was just a verbal thing. And I'm not saying that that's okay, but I'm saying what we're talking about and what we're seeing right now are physical acts of violence. We're seeing lives being taken, and it's not okay. And we cannot say nothing or do nothing. We must speak out, and that's what I plan on doing, and that's what a lot of other people are doing right now as well, which is encouraging.
You've actually recently said that you worry that you're encouraging more hate by speaking out. Why is that?
I mean, it's just human nature for me to think, man, am I making a difference? Am I helping things trend in the right direction? And for me, you know, I'm kind of thinking as I've been monitoring everything, it seems like things are getting worse by the day, by the week, that there's more headlines, that there's getting more and more ridiculous acts of violence. And so sometimes I'm wondering, are these headlines enabling other people? Is, you know, me speaking out causing more hate and more division? And these are natural questions that I'm wrestling with and thinking through. But at the same time, it's like, man, we're at a critical juncture. And I feel like it's really important to speak out and to say something and to stand up and to be a voice for some of the people who might not have that voice to be heard, which is really, really sad.
So my question to you is, where do we go from here? There's so many stereotypes about Asian men. You're an athlete. We barely ever see Asian male athletes as public figures. How do we change that narrative?
I think and I love the clip that you guys showed. We're able to see that as multi-generational and systemic, right? So this is not something that is going to change overnight, and this is not something that is going to happen easily. This is going back even to the railroad. If you look at the railroad, you know, Asians built 90% of it. And then when you think about the way that it was marketed, or the pictures at the very end, when they finally put the last pin in and they nailed it down and all this, and there's no Asians to be seen in the photographs and the media and the marketing. And then it goes from there, and you see the Exclusion Act and the Japanese internment camps and different things like that. This is a long, deep rooted issue. But what we can do right now is just to talk and bring awareness around it. And I think at the very least, if anything, by talking about it, more people will hear. There will be more accountability. And I think naming and having the issue be upfront in conversation is the start of it. And then it's going to be on policymakers and different, things going forward. But at the very least, that's where we can start right now.
And Jeremy Lin, people just want to be seen. That is definitely the message. We appreciate you being here with us tonight. And David, he portrays such an important image for people to see that is so against the stereotypes that everyone has of Asian men.
No, and I love that conversation. I mean, so brave and candid about the power of his own words, wondering if they'll have impact. And I hope that we can just tell them that they are, and they're more needed now than ever. That was really great, Eva. When we come back here tonight, the stories from all over this country, the attacks happening in big cities and in small towns, and our local ABC reporters are standing by with what they've witnessed in their own communities. This is powerful and eye-opening, and we'll be right back.
The rise in Asian American attacks making headlines across the country. Communities from New York to Oakland and San Francisco.
Of course, the big cities and the small towns all across this country, every incident raising the level of fear and anger, not just in the Asian American community, but really everywhere. And we want to bring in our reporters from some of our ABC stations across the country, beginning with Safan Kim from WABC here in New York. And Safan, we watch your reporting on a daily basis. And I know that you've reported so often on how difficult it is to actually prosecute hate crimes.
That's right, David. Hate crimes are the only crimes that require a proof of motive. So what investigators oftentimes need is some kind of racial slur being hurled. But as we've seen from so many of these attacks that we've covered, oftentimes no words are exchanged. So part of what we've been doing through our reporting is asking the question, why not in these gray areas where investigators struggle with how to categorize these crimes, at least absent of any obvious motive, no words exchanged, unprovoked, at least investigate the possibility of a hate crime. Now, credit to the NYPD, it has come around to understand this point of view from the community, and so as a result of our reporting, it has gone from no words exchanged, not racially motivated, to no words exchanged, unprovoked, investigating the possibility of a hate crime. But of course, charging the suspect is just one step. Prosecuting is a whole other challenge. So here in New York, there is a movement to change the definition of a hate crime. David?
Safan, great to have you with us here tonight. And stick with us here. We want to bring in Nidia Han from our ABC station, WPVI in Philadelphia, who wrote an op-ed in March of last year in the Philadelphia Inquirer about the hateful speech Asian Americans were experiencing due to COVID. And essentially what she wrote came true.
And Nidia, I know that was right at the beginning, and you've described subtle racism against Asians being ignored. What do you think people can do to combat this?
Eva, an honor to be with you tonight. One way to combat subtle or casual racism is to educate by calling it out for what it is, damaging and unacceptable. We know words, pictures, so-called jokes have a profound impact, perpetuating this false notion that we are the forever foreigner or the enemy or people to be objectified. And the violence we're seeing today is deeply rooted in those very sentiments. So let me give you two examples of what can happen when we call out and shine a light on this kind of behavior. In Philadelphia, a hoagie shop posted a racist menu item, something it called COVID mac and cheese. A labor union board member posted a racist meme on social media. When those stories were amplified, the menu item was removed and the labor union board member resigned. Those are real results, real consequences. And Eva, I think that is one way we can change our narrative in this country.
Nidhi, there's power in speaking up, that is for sure. Thank you. And now we go to Dion Lim from our ABC station KGO in San Francisco.
Dion has quite a reputation for digging the stories up there, and a lot of your reporting, Dion, I know has come about because victims have found you on social media. They've used direct messaging because that's where they feel safe enough to tell you about what's happening in your community.
That's right, David. These are victims who are at the lowest points in their lives. They are petrified, and the last thing they want to do is report their crime because of a number of reasons. They're afraid because they don't think others will believe them, or two, maybe there'll be retaliation. So what they do is they go to social media where they can feel a connection with me and therefore share their story and be empowered. It's a very special thing, David.
All right, Dion, thank you. And thank you at home for watching. This is just the beginning. From all of us here at ABC News, good night. Tonight, hear the stunning new legal twist as a witness admits he lied on the stand in a grisly kidnapping case.
For the first time tonight, you're going to see a startling tape. Could it free a man who's now behind bars? 2020 begins right now.
Somebody has my daughter. They have kidnapped her. Please get everybody in the community out there.
Everybody trying to say, it's okay, Karen, this is all just a mistake. But see, they didn't know what I knew that morning.
Nursing student Holly Bobo, last seen being dragged away from her home by a man in camouflage.
She said, stop, 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 leave me alone, stop. But she never called out his name.
Just hours after Holly Bobo disappeared, more than 400 people turned up here to search these woods.
No, Holly, I love.
This is the Tennessee River. On its western bank is Decatur County, a patchwork of sparsely populated farms, dense woods, and neighbors who look out for each other.
It's a rural county with a cute little small town, Parsons. Very close to the Tennessee River.
A lot of cattle farming and crop farming.
Hunting, fishing, boating.
People that like to live out in the country, they have some animals or some horses.
There's not a lot of industry in Decatur County.
I started to say it might be compared to Mayberry, but it's nothing like that. We do have crime just like every other town in America, but we are rural. Everybody pretty much knows everybody. Everybody knew Holly and her family.
20-year-old Holly Bobo came from a loving family. She lived with her mother, Karen, father, Dana, and her older brother, 25-year-old Clint, in a home her dad built with his own hands.
It was your typical little single story, 3 bedrooms, kitchen was in the middle kind of, and then a little small living room. And they had a carport there, which is a 2-car carport to the back of the house.
They're typical middle-class, hard-working country folks. Holly's dad, he had an excavating business, and her mother was a school teacher.
Holly and I were very close, and we were about 5 years apart.
Holly was raised like my little sister, and Clint was like my little brother. We were always growing up together.
We just lived in our own world, 2 kids in college. We had our church family, our family gatherings, went to the movies together, rode 4-wheelers together, rode horses.
The Bobo kids grew up with a sense of caring for their community. Clint is studying to become a social worker, and Holly is attending nursing school.
They're the best people on earth. That's what hurt so bad, that this happened to them. They didn't do anything that would have put them in harm's way of having this to happen. It just doesn't happen to people like them.
It was just a normal morning like anything else. Dana gets up first and gets ready.
And I usually go out and feed the dog.
Dana says Holly is already up, studying for a big test later that day.
I asked her if she needed any money, I think, for gas or whatever that day. She said, yeah, and I left her some money on the bar. I left out my regular time, 5:30 or something like that, and went on to work.
Karen wakes up a short time later.
So I went on about my business, getting ready.
Thousands of people will come to this small town, all asking the same question. Where is Holly Bobo? A quiet spring morning in the country interrupted by a scream. Then, a deafening silence. 20-year-old Holly Bobo vanished from her own backyard, and her family is in anguish.
Holly was an absolute joy from the day she was born. It just seemed like there was something special about her. She was always kind to people and appreciated the small things in life.
Holly's mother says she shares a special bond with her only daughter.
We could finish each other's sentences. We enjoyed doing the same things, riding horses, listening to the radio.
Holly's cousin, country singer Whitney Duncan, says music has always been a passion for Holly.
We had singing in common for sure, and she had a beautiful voice. Peace in the Valley was her favorite gospel song. I have that clip and go back and watch it.
Following graduation from high school, Holly has her eye on the future, studying hard to become a nurse.
Holly and I ended up in the same nursing class in Parsons, and so I really got to know her. She was very committed to the program. You could just tell. She studied continuously. On the day that she went missing, we got to class and we're supposed to take a test the first thing. The instructor went out and came back, and she announced that something terrible had happened. And so we immediately dispersed, went to the area, started searching.
When tragedy strikes, Decatur County comes together. On April 13, 2011, just hours after Holly Bobo disappeared, more than 400 people turned up here to search these woods, trying to help find any clue as to what happened to the 20-year-old nursing student.
Comments everywhere that normal people would not make.
And in the early days of the investigation, Holly's mother, Karen, thought these guys could know something, given what they had been heard saying around town. So she tracked them down herself.
I asked them, did they know anything about our daughter's abduction? Of course, they all denied it.
She was kind of doing her own investigation. I mean, she came here and asked to talk to Shane.
I guess I would have fought Goliath. You know, I just had no fear. I was trying to find my daughter.
And at the time of Holly's abduction, witnesses tell investigators that before she went missing, Shane Austin crossed paths with her at a local raccoon hunting festival.
The story was that Shane had seen Holly Bobo at the coon hunt, and that he'd kind of followed her around like a stalker.
Did you hear anything about that?
I guess we heard that rumor. We heard that he was trying to take a picture of her and pretending like he was talking on the phone. But now Shane only had a flip phone, so I don't think you could hold that flip phone up to your head and take a picture of somebody, but that's what we heard.
Investigators followed up on this story. Within a week of Holly's disappearance, they showed up at the Austins' property wanting to speak with Shane.
They come and brought the dogs and come down and search Shane's trailer, and that was the start of it.
Throughout their investigation, authorities say they never found evidence at the Austins' property that connected him to Holly Bobo.
Were you surprised that they were down there?
Yes. I mean, I know Shane had drug issues, and that's what I told the TBI guy when he come to the gate down there. I said, hey, I said, if she'd been made of morphine, I'd said you come to the right place, but no way.
And then, 2 years later, with those new agents on the case, authorities zeroed back in on the Adams brothers, Jason Autry and Shane Austin.
At what point did you realize that he might be in trouble with all of this?
When they come back at 6 o'clock in the morning and tooting the horn, so we went down and opened the gate and let them in, and they said, we're down here to get this over with, so we want Shane.
That's when they wanted to know where the body was at. The TBI met with Shane and they got that immunity deal.
Investigators offered Shane immunity to cooperate and tell them what he knew about his friend's involvement in Holly Bobo's abduction.
You take an immunity deal, hey, you've done something. You've done something. But the lawyer said, if you don't do it, they're going to arrest him. They've done told me they're going to arrest him. And he said, it's going to cost thousands of dollars. So us three, we talked and we agreed. And
we talked hard.
We talked hard.
We talked hard. If you got any part of this, you better be telling it.
Shane Austin had nothing at all to do with this.
So Shane Austin takes the deal, but when he sits down with investigators, they're disappointed.
They was very unhappy because he didn't know where the body was at.
According to authorities, all he can tell them is that he too has heard Zach Adams make incriminating comments about what happened to Holly.
There was talk that Zach had blurted out, I'm gonna do you like I did to Holly.
But Shane also said that he didn't believe that Zach was telling the truth. He thought that Zach was just boasting.
But investigators believe Shane knows more than he's telling, and they revoke that immunity deal.
I'm scared for my son. If the TBI wasn't here, they was calling him, harassing him. So we didn't have any peace.
I don't know if it was them calling him or whatever, but anyway, his drug use just escalated, and that's from that, so. And Christmas was the last time we seen him.
Shane's parents say his life continued to spiral, and in 2015, he died by suicide.
Shane opened that door to addiction. They just grabbed him and pulled him in, and this time it pulled him in for real. Wasn't gonna let him go.
Authorities have lost one cooperating witness, but they're about to get a new one.
That's true. You ain't gonna be scared of nobody now. There ain't no reason to be scared of nobody.
Could what he has to say finally explain what happened to Holly Bobo? More than 2 years after Holly Bobo disappeared, investigators are still searching for answers. Rumors about 4 local small-time criminals, Zach Adams, his brother Dylan Adams, Jason Autry, and Shane Austin, have failed to lead to any hard evidence. But in 2014, investigators catch a break when Dylan Adams is arrested on unrelated gun charges. The Decatur County Sheriff's Office receives a shocking phone call. The caller is Dennis Benjamin, telling them that Dylan Adams, still in his custody, has just confessed to taking part in the kidnapping and murder of Holly Bobo.
Just have your seat right there if you don't mind.
Dylan Adams is brought in to speak with TBI agents, and through halting one-word answers, he tells them that he, Zach Adams, Jason Autry, and Shane Austin committed the crime together.
You came forward to Dennis and told him some things that are above and beyond what you've ever told me or Brent about this case, right? Yes, sir. Okay. Describe what was she doing, what did she look like, what was she wearing?
She had long pants on, pink shirt, things like that. Okay.
Dylan says that all 4 men sexually assaulted Holly at Zach's house.
And now you're saying that Shane Austin is sitting there. You're sitting there. Jason Autry is sitting there. And Zach. Is there anybody else involved? Was Holly Bobo kidnapped? Was she raped? Raped by you?
I just see someone being bullied into saying something they didn't do. I think that he was just trying to get through it.
You withheld information. That ain't how this works.
He was in a federal holding facility for almost 2 years. The TBI agents there pounded him, and he never, ever once said, I raped Holly. And then he's moved to this Dennis Benjamin's house, and suddenly he's raped Holly.
We attempted to contact Dennis Benjamin, but we were unable to reach him.
She was shot in the back of the head. How did that happen? How much blood was on the floor? What was ever done to clean that up?
Well, I know just that. After hand, I don't know.
Armed with Dylan's confession and a search warrant, investigators go to Zach Adams' house looking for any physical evidence to corroborate his story.
They come to the door there and asked me, said, you want to unlock it or you want us to tear the door down? And they knocked a hole in it to see what was back there, I reckon. Tore the fan down as they was tearing the floor out. They used my pick and things to tear this out with, but they cut it out with a saw.
And the story was raping her and attacking her in the house. Well, they pulled up floorboards, they DNA tested all the couch and the bed and everything, never found it, nothing.
We reached out to the TBI and they declined to answer specific questions about this case.
In my heart of hearts, I know my boys, they're drug addicts. They're not murderers.
But despite a lack of evidence, authorities believe that's exactly what they are. Zach Adams, Jason Autry, and Dylan Adams are eventually all indicted for murder.
Decatur County Grand Jury handed down indictment of especially aggravated kidnapping and first-degree felony murder.
With all 3 heading to trial, the state announces that it will seek the death penalty, and Jason Autry proclaims his innocence.
He took her, he raped her, killed her, he covered it up, he bragged about it, and he almost got away with it, but he didn't, because we're here now.
He did not murder Holly Lynn Bobo. He did not kidnap Holly Lynn Bobo. He did not abduct Holly Lynn Bobo. He did not rape Holly. And do you remember?
Karen Bobo knew the man, now accused of killing her daughter when he was just a boy.
Did you know Zach Adams?
I had Zach in the 4th grade. I was his 4th grade school teacher.
The very first day, you have Holly's mother basically fall out on the stand during her testimony.
Take just a minute, I'm feeling sick.
Let's take a recess. I want everyone to remain with me while the jury files out, please. Oh, got a nurse.
Holly's father also testifies.
What day did you give up hope for the very first time?
And about 3 years into it, give or take, the TBI come to our house, told us that was Holly, Holly had been found. That was her remains.
I'm gonna ask you to look at this picture. You recognize it?
Prosecutors produced the alleged murder weapon. It's a .32 caliber revolver witnesses claim was owned by Zach Adams' friend, Shane Austin, and it was recovered in a drainage ditch just months before the trial.
We located a metal object that was later identified as a revolver.
A parade of no fewer than 9 witnesses testify that over the years, Adams, often while on drugs or in jail, made incriminating statements.
The prosecution and defense each call a cell phone expert. Both agree Adams and the other suspects' phones did not hit cell towers near the Bobo home at the time Holly was taken.
At the time of this abduction, do we have any idea where Zach Adams' phone is, where Shane Austin's phone is, where Dylan's Adams' phone is, or where Jason Autry's phone is?
No.
The prosecution expert says it's possible Holly and Zach Adams' phones were in the same general locations later that morning, but the defense expert disagrees.
In very general terms, the devices were not together at the same location at the same time during that morning.
Did you kill Holly Bobo?
Absolutely not.
Why do you think you guys became suspects in this case?
We didn't have a hard alibi, and we was local, drug users and stuff, and would it matter putting us away? I felt like they had to arrest somebody, even if it was the wrong person, which it was.
As the trial continues, astonishing testimony. A witness you might think would be the last person to believe Adams is innocent.
I looked at Zach personally a total of 2 or 3 times. Whenever the last one was over with, I stopped looking at him.
And a stunning courtroom appearance. That former suspect with a theory of what Holly's killer was thinking.
You gotta hide it, and if you kill it, what you gonna do with it?
Terry Britt, the man investigators say they cleared, is about to take the stand.
All right, we're ready to continue. Defense ready to proceed? State ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
All right, call your next.
Terry Dykes.
In the same fashion, shut the tailgate. We driving just erratic. Panic, just pretty much.
To hear him telling that story.
Anger. What I felt anger. Sadness, because I thought he was my friend. Why would he lie on me?
The Bobo family told us in 2017 they believe Zach Adams is responsible for their daughter's murder and that Jason Autry's testimony rang true to them.
It did, and it matched what the prosecutors had also.
My cross-examination of Autry was everything. I mean, it was really important.
The defense attorney points out at the time Autry says the murder happened, he was on phone calls with his girlfriend and also his mother.
In the middle of all this, you were able to take a telephone call from your mother, Shirley King, that morning at 9:42, weren't you?
If your records reflect that, that's true.
Autry also mentions a burn barrel at Shane Austin's house.
55-gallon barrel with all the paint off of it, with flames shooting out the top of it, 3 to 4 foot high.
Shane's mother says there was no burn barrel.
Shane didn't have a burn barrel at his trailer.
Shane's mother also says Jason Autry was wrong about a fence at Shane's trailer.
The gate was open.
No, the driveway did not have a gate at that time. We did put a gate and a fence up, and it was June of 2011 after we bought Shane a puppy.
The prosecution basically adopted Jason Autry's story of what happened, but they left huge gaps in their prosecution, and they don't explain who it was that came and abducted Holly. They don't explain how her body got at that cell tower.
Prosecutors argued at trial that Shane Austin could have been the one who took Holly.
Jason Autry is the best evidence that these prosecutors have in this case because they have very little physical evidence. They're banking on the jury completely, wholeheartedly buying his account.
Inside this courthouse, the jury is about to deliver a verdict. It could be a life or death decision for Zach Adams. Either way, it won't be the end of it.
Years later, a new investigation, another courtroom battle, and prison interviews. What Zach Adams and Jason Autry say now.
I have no reason to lie.
Yeah.
So people were skeptical. What do you say to those people?
He said the person was what, 5'9", 200 pounds? It wasn't Jason Autry. He's 6'6". Could have been me. I was 6'3", 125 pounds. My brother's 6'2", 125 pounds. The person that abducted her wasn't one of us. I mean, he didn't match the description of any of us.
A flurry of legal filings beginning January 2024 lay out why Zach Adams says he deserves a new trial and why prosecutors say he does not.
April 2024, a hearing at the Hardin County Courthouse.
The court's going to order that the temporary order placing these exhibits under seal is to remain in effect.
Adams' new attorney is there and some familiar faces, trial prosecutor Jennifer Nichols and the Bobos.
Zach Adams is searching for new evidence, new witnesses. He's being helped by Katie Spurko. She's a neuropsychologist and she's been re-examining the case against him.
How did you end up involved in this case?
The attorney who's representing Zach Adams, Doug Bates, is an attorney I've worked with before.
What was he looking for you to do?
He wanted me to review the case file, watch the testimony, and see if there were things that stood out to me in terms of whether someone was being honest or not.
Spurko says she is now working for Zach Adams' mother instead of his attorney.
As psychologists, we are trained on how to interview people to elicit accurate information.
Spurko provided 2020 with interviews she recorded during her investigation.
I want to know everything about you. I want to be able to look into your soul and know every single thing about you. I wanted to get a sense for what he was like, because he didn't testify. And I remember the first thing he asked me was if I thought he was innocent. And I said I didn't know yet.
Do you now think he's innocent?
I am so confident he's innocent.
Hi, my name's Katie, and I'm so sorry to come here unannounced. I had your address and I didn't have your phone number.
Spurko looked for more information about former suspect Terry Britt, who was later cleared by the TBI. She went to see his wife, Janet, who still stands by her husband.
There was some evidence that came up with Terry regarding the Holly Bobo situation.
I don't see how, because he didn't have nothing to do with it. There's no way he could have went and kidnapped her. He was here with me. Just because he has a record, that doesn't mean he had anything to do with it.
Some of Katie Spurko's investigating has provoked a reaction from the prosecutor. In a court filing that includes an affidavit from Janet Britt, the prosecutor accuses Spurko of trying to intimidate Britt and of offering to show her confidential discovery files.
Spurko denies she tried to intimidate Britt and says the only files she offered to share were public records of Terry Britt's criminal history. Zach Adams' court filings also say Spurko found a witness who claims she saw Terry Britt behaving oddly the morning Holly was taken.
She said he was in a smaller truck and was kind of leaning over, had made eye contact with her and was leaning over, adjusting his body to block her view of his passenger seat.
Prosecutors say Adams' attorney and Spurko have not gotten a sworn statement from that witness, which they say the law requires before it can be considered.
Still ahead, the effort to free Zach Adams brings Katie Spurko face to face with the person who helped send him to prison.
He said, somebody's got to pay, Jason. He said that he gonna be you. Hell no, I ain't paying.
Forensic Forensic neuropsychologist Katie Spurko, now working for Zach Adams' family, has spent nearly a year studying his case file, watching the trial testimony, tracking down and interviewing witnesses. But the person she most wanted to talk to was the man many say sealed Adams' fate, Jason Autry.
When you went to see Jason, what were you hoping was going to come from that conversation?
I was just super curious what he would be like, if he would talk to me, what he would have to say. Can we just start at the very beginning of when he first started getting questioned related to the Bobo case? I asked him, what did you do that day? And he gave me what seemed like a really honest answer.
No, I couldn't tell you what I done that day.
Yeah.
Katie Spurko provided ABC News with this video, and it's the first time it's being seen publicly.
I want to know your whole experience. How did it get from you being arrested for this to you being on the stand telling this crazy story?
So all of this in the beginning was just all routine questions.
Autry says that when he told his attorney that he intended to fight the charges and go to trial, he got an answer he wasn't expecting.
He said, I got you about a 95% chance. You spend the rest of your time right over. You know, what do they want? You know, I need to know what they want. What do they want from me?
Yeah.
I want you to testify. Straight up about it.
What does he tell you?
Tells me he made the whole thing up. Took the phone records and the case file and put together what he did that day to craft a story that fits in with the evidence that exists and cannot be changed.
I said, well, what if I say all I seen was just a body, you know, laying in the back of the truck? It's not enough to get you out.
Why would someone admit to killing someone if they didn't do it?
He's sitting in jail for years. He's being told that Zach's gonna be telling a story against him, and basically it's this or the death penalty. And so under that amount of pressure, I think a lot of people would have folded the way he did.
And he said, I need you to help me bury this body. And he said, that's Holly Bobo.
You're an engaging witness.
Well, I was trained.
I could tell you were trained. I'm on the witness stand a lot.
Yeah.
I know. I was trained witness.
Yeah.
Who was doing the training?
Jennifer Nichols.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was the boss of it all.
Zach Adams' defense team made this claim in their legal filing, and we reached out to Jennifer Nichols about it. She denied the allegation, telling us that it is a false statement. The only guidance ever given to Jason Autry was to tell the truth. There was no training.
That's the worst I've ever felt in my life, coming back, knowing that you just lied and put an innocent man in prison.
Now he has no benefit to be gained other than morally to address the remorse. This isn't helping him whatsoever. He's facing sentencing on federal gun charges.
But it's important to remember that one way or another, Jason Autry is an admitted liar. And prosecutors argue that Autry's recantation should not get Zach Adams a new trial, saying Mr. Autry's credibility was thoroughly impeached during cross-examination at trial and that the jury was aware of inconsistencies in his testimony. They also contend that Autry's testimony was vetted and corroborated.
What do you think of the fact that Jason recanted his confession?
I'm glad. I'm glad he's telling the truth. It's about time. I wish he would have never lied in the first place.
So what does this mean for Zach Adams? Is there a chance Jason Autry's new story could set him free?
A request for a new trial for a man convicted in the 2011 murder of a Holly Bobo.
I mean, so I'm in here for something I didn't do, so I'm hopeful.
This case is a tragedy. There was never a day in that courtroom that I didn't feel for Karen.
No remorse for anything that you have done.
At sentencing, Holly Bobo's mother There was that very dramatic moment where she wanted to speak to you and look you face to face, eye to eye.
Well, she felt like she was talking to the person that took her daughter's life, but she don't realize that I'm not that person. They're the real victims of all this, but they didn't know that we didn't have anything to do with it. And if I knew anything, I would have helped any way I could have.
Before this happened to Holly, we lived in what we thought was one of the safest communities. The day that Holly was abducted, not only was something taken from us, it was taken from our whole county, community, and the surrounding counties.
The goal was to get justice for Holly, and I feel like that happened. And obviously it didn't bring her back. There will still be sad, but there is a little peace in knowing that the people that did this to her will be in jail.
But now there are questions about whether one of those people, Zach Adams, will remain behind bars.
A request for a new trial for a man convicted in the 2011 murder of a Holly Bobo.
Zach Adams' team will now need to convince a judge that Jason Autry's new story amounts to new evidence that would have changed the jury's verdict.
Jason Autry recanted his testimony, and that would give Adams an alibi for Bobo's murder.
We reached out to Jennifer Nichols, the prosecutor in this case. She declined our request for an interview, but sent us a statement that says in part, "At trial, we presented proof through 62 witnesses and 250 exhibits. The jurors heard testimony of Zachary Adams' confessions to multiple and unrelated individuals. Today, nearly 8 years after the verdicts, I remain confident in the jury's verdicts of Zachary Adams' guilt."
We understood, when the trial and sentence and everything took place, that there'd be a number of events down through the years. We're going to be patient because we still are seeking justice for our beloved Holly.
Holly was always about helping someone. Whatever Holly did, she put forth her best effort. And it was just in her soul to be that kind, loving, nurturing person.
It's been more than 13 years since Holly's passing, and her legacy still remains. A stretch of Tennessee highway has been dedicated in her honor. And Holly's cousin, country singer Whitney Duncan, recorded a song to honor Holly.
I wanted to convey a message of she's not hurting anymore. She is in a better place. But I know she's watching down and she sees everything. And she is happy.
After Holly's death, the Bobo family established a scholarship in her name for other nursing students.
As for Zach Adams, a hearing is scheduled next month when a judge is going to consider some of his legal filings. That's our program for tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.